It was one of those mornings when the sky looked too heavy, as if the clouds themselves carried untold stories. The glass doors of the luxury car dealership slid open with a soft hum, and in walked Ethan Wallace, a man whose name was synonymous with wealth, success, and perfection. He had everything a person could dream of: mansions, cars, a thriving business empire, and the respect of everyone who crossed his path. But beneath that crisp, tailored suit and calm, confident stride lived a man with a frozen heart, one who hadn't smiled in years without forcing it. He had built empires, yet couldn't rebuild the one thing that mattered most: love. But nothing, not even his millions, his status, or his meticulously controlled emotions, could have prepared him for what happened that morning. Because as he stepped into the dealership, scanning the room casually, his world came to a sudden halt. There, standing by a silver sedan, arranging brochures with delicate precision, was a young saleswoman whose face struck him like lightning. Ethan's breath caught in his chest. His heart, dormant for years, thudded violently as he blinked, trying to convince himself it wasn't real, but it was. She looked exactly like Emily, his ex-wife. The woman he had lost a decade ago. The one he had loved beyond reason. And the one whose absence had turned his world into cold marble. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the mysterious ways life brings people or lessons back to us, then take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to KindHeartsHub. This story may just remind you that sometimes love doesn't end, it transforms. Ethan stood frozen for what felt like an eternity. The saleswoman, Clara, reader name tag, turned to greet him with a polite, professional smile. That smile, it was identical, the same warmth, the same gentle curve that used to melt away his stress after a long day. But there was something else in her eyes, something deeper. She had the same chestnut hair, the same soft tone of voice, and even the same way of tucking a strand of hair behind her ear when she spoke. For a brief, painful moment, Ethan's mind blurred the lines between past and present. It wasn't Clara he was seeing, it was Emily. The love he'd lost because he chose ambition over affection. 10 years earlier, Ethan had been a rising businessman, obsessed with success. Emily had stood by his side through every sleepless night, every risk, and every failure. She was his anchor, the one who believed in his dreams even when he doubted himself. But as his empire grew, his attention waned. Business dinners replaced date nights. Phone calls became arguments. Promises turned into apologies that came too late. And one night, after a particularly cruel argument, Emily had left. She hadn't shouted or cried, she just said she couldn't recognize the man he had become. That was the last time he saw her. Ethan tried to drown his guilt in money, in projects, in meaningless success, but wealth couldn't silence the ache in his chest. His nights became colder, his heart heavier. He had reached every dream he once chased, only to realize none of it mattered without her laughter echoing through his home. Now, as Clara spoke about the features of the car, Ethan barely heard a word. He was lost in memory. Her voice carried the same kindness, the same rhythm. It felt like a cruel trick of fate, or perhaps a test. Was this woman sent to remind him of the life he had destroyed? When he finally managed to speak, his voice trembled slightly, betraying the emotions he usually buried so well. Clara noticed. She asked gently if he was all right. That simple act of care, so small, yet so deeply human, hit him harder than any business failure ever had. He nodded, forcing a smile, but his eyes glistened with emotions he couldn't contain. Over the following weeks, Ethan found reasons to visit the dealership again and again. He told himself it was for another car, a new investment, a partnership, but deep down, he knew it was something else. He wanted to understand why Clara reminded him so much of Emily. He wanted to know her story. Each visit revealed fragments of her life, a hard-working woman who had faced her share of loss, yet never let it break her spirit. She cared for her mother, volunteered at shelters, and believed in helping people find hope again. It was uncanny Emily had been the same. Ethan began helping Clara's dealership anonymously, sending clients, arranging promotions, doing everything he could to make her job easier, not out of pity, but because it felt like redemption. He couldn't help Emily anymore, but perhaps he could help someone who carried her light. One afternoon, as rain lashed against the glass windows, Ethan found himself alone with Clara in the showroom. The storm outside mirrored the one inside his heart. He told her she reminded him of someone he once knew, someone he had hurt and lost. Clara listened silently, her eyes soft with empathy. She didn't pry, didn't judge. She just listened, and for the first time in years, Ethan spoke freely about regret, about ambition, about love that slipped away. When he finished, Clara smiled and said, "Sometimes, life sends us reflections of people we lost, not to haunt us, but to heal us." Her words hit him like a sunrise breaking through a long night. He realized then that this encounter wasn't coincidence, it was closure. Maybe Emily was gone, but her kindness had found a way to reach him through someone else. Weeks turned into months, and Clara's presence became a quiet blessing in Ethan's life. She reminded him how to be gentle again, how to listen, how to care. He began visiting orphanages, funding scholarships, helping small businesses, things Emily had always dreamed of doing. Through Clara, he found a way to reconnect with the goodness he once lost. Then, one day, Clara handed him a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note that read, "You've changed someone's world, Mr. Wallace. Maybe that's what you were meant to do all along." She was moving to another city for a better opportunity. As she walked away, Ethan didn't stop her. He knew this wasn't another goodbye to mourn, it was a goodbye that brought peace. That night, Ethan stood by his window watching the rain. He smiled a genuine, quiet smile and whispered a thank you to the universe and perhaps to Emily. Because, through a stranger's kindness, he had found forgiveness, purpose, and a second chance at being human again. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to KindHeartsHub. Leave a comment and tell us what you believe about fate, love, or the power of second chances. Your words might inspire someone else to heal too. Special request to comment. Tell us in the comments, do you believe people come into our lives for a reason? Your story might be the one that touches someone's heart today.